that's all that for Airflow. You can read about Airflow at your own point. Airflow is scalable, it's dynamic, it's extensible. The beauty about it is if you've used Python, you can use Airflow. Yeah, so pure Python, useful UI, robust integrations, easy to use, open source, right? DBT. So what's DBT? So really, this class is about two things, Python and SQL. If you use Python, you can use Airflow. If you use SQL, you can use DBT. Is that simple? Is that straightforward? You add a little thing to it, GitHub, right? If you can use Git version control, blend three of them together, you're obviously good to go. So DBT's data build tool is currently becoming or quickly becoming the de facto standard in data transformation for analytics workloads. For example, how do three data analysts collaborate within a team? Traditionally, after working on your script, you copy it, save it as a TXT file or as an SQL file, send it to the other person. The person runs it, or you have a shared folder where you save some couple of things like that. It's good, but it's not as beautiful as using version control. Right? Both of you can collaborate in real time. You can make comments on it. You can go back to a previous version of the file, right? You can automate a couple of things to run using version control, right? You can enable things like tests. DBT gives you all that, like in a nutshell. So this is DBT's official website, getdbt.com. DBT has two offerings. There's DBT Cloud and there's DBT Core, right? DBT Core is what you could use on-premise, use on your own local machines, but DBT has a managed version called DBT Cloud, which you use strictly in the cloud. They manage all the setup for you. All you need to do is your configuration. So like I said, if you don't have a DBT account and you want to follow through what we're doing here, just go to cloud.getdbt.com and create your own DBT account, and we'll kick it off from there. I don't want to spend so much time, but if you read everything here, you'll be able to pick up what DBT is about. Really, DBT gives you speed. So at the end of this session, I want us to have a basic hands-on grip of Airflow concepts, operators, Airflow task flow API, dynamic task mapping, data-aware scheduling, become a bit familiar with the DBT UI, concept of macros, documentation. Yes, that's one very key thing that DBT gives you, documentation on the fly. So you create your documentation using YAML files, and at the end of the day, anyone could quickly go search for a table. If you have a table named orders, right? I could search for orders and see the description of what this table is about. What is the primary key on this table? What are the tests that are being done on this particular table? Okay, primary key is unique. This value must not be greater than 2000, A, B, C, D, E, F, like that. These two tools, you can use it for literally any ETL or ELT workflow that you want to build. And yeah, so let's move over from there. Okay, confirm. Can you still hear me clearly? Am I clear enough? I'm not clear enough. The mic has to be closer. Wow, interesting. Okay, is it better now? Yeah? Okay, so I want to assume you already have this repository, right? Let me refresh it just to know how many people have been able to fork the repository. Whether you're following or not, do well to have a fork of this repository on your Git profile. One person has done that. It was 22 before we started. So do well to have a fork of this so that at your own free time, you can follow through with this project because it's straightforward. And so what are we building really? Let's look at something visual a bit. Interesting. For some reason, I think there's still some network latency issue here. It's still loading. I hope this works as I want it to do, but let me refresh one more time. Okay, about two more people will have the fuck of that. There's a diagram I'm expecting here. I hope it opens up so it won't waste so much time. Okay, so while that's loading up, like I said, we're going to be using code spaces to run this project. So you don't need to download anything to your system. Remember I said that earlier. Let me just connect to different networks, something. Trying to switch network for some reason. Network here is terrible. I don't know how many people are experiencing that, but maybe you have one magical network you're using today. Let me know, please. Okay, let's see. Let me check this and see what happens. Okay, fine. So this is what we're building, right? It's a very straightforward pipeline. We'll get data from an API. It's called Fixed Store API. Feel free to just check it out. I think it should be somewhere here. Let me see. It's somewhere on this link, though, but for want of time, I don't want us to dig so much into that. But if you want to be sure of that file, just go into where I have my include folder, which is part of my Airflow project. Go to where I have, I think, helper scripts, if I'm not mistaken. I think it should be somewhere here. Let me see. Transformers, I guess. Okay, fine. So this is the API that we're going to be using for this project. I'll just paste it here. So yeah, fixedorapi.com. We'll make requests to it. We'll use Python's native request library, and we're going to be able to see things like products, cards, users, and blah, blah, blah. Call all of them in with Airflow, right? Airflow will run our Python scripts for us. And after getting that, we'll just simulate loading your JSON data to a data lake. And after that, we're going to load it into a Postgres database. Next, we'll use DBT to do the transformation, but this whole process will be orchestrated by Airflow. So Airflow will tell this when to run, tell the loading here when to run, and the Airflow will now trigger the DBT job, right? So let's run quickly. So what I'm going to do, I already started a bit, but I hope I'll be fast for want of time. But in case we're not able to complete, trust me, once you have this repository, you can run everything on your own. So I'll go to code, and I'll go to code spaces. I already have a code space I created here on GitHub. Code spaces just gives you like a virtual environment. Sorry, let me duplicate this guy so that I could. Code spaces gives you a virtual environment so that you run something, your workflow in the cloud. You don't need to do all the pip install A, B, C, D, E, F on your system, right? Code spaces just gives you a system to do that. Use a minimum of 16 gig of RAM because Airflow can be resource hungry sometimes. Once this loads up, I'll show us the next steps to do. So the README is very clear. So after forking the project, we need to give DBT access to our repository. I've already done that. I've given DBT access to my Airflow repository. I've created some environment variables in DBT, and what else? So there are two files which you need to which you need to replace in this. Sorry, on this project, there are two files called your .env file. So you can see .env.example. You can rename it to .env and put adequate values for those variables. Then flow settings.example.yaml. You're also going to rename that to flow underscore settings.yaml. We're using the Astronomer SDK to run our Airflow instance so that we don't have to do too much installation. I'm having a terrible issue here with network. Does anybody have any network that can do magic here? I would appreciate if you have, let me know, so we could switch to that because nothing seems to be working here. There's MTN and there's Airtel. I didn't hear. Both of them, MTN and Airtel, are here. Yeah, MTN. This MTN. MTN is not giving me what I okay. I think we're making a little progress. So remember, like I said, rename your env file to your env.example file to en.env. Create an airflow settings.yaml file. Just rename what you have there. Use the same template. For mine, I already have my information set up. My credentials will be configured here. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. I wish this network was on our or in our favor today, but from what's happening here, it doesn't really seem to be so. But then for DBT job, I have a DBT production environment here. Because I've set up a couple of things, I'll just come here to create a job. And in this job, in my DBT environment, I'm going to create a new job. Let me just call it a deploy job. I'm going to call it, let me just call it Airflow job. And whatever it can be this. I'm going to be running DBT build. I'm going to be running DBT test. DBT build is going to run DBT test for me. I'm going to be running DBT docs. I don't need to do this too because if I just select this, it's going to run DBT docs generate for me, right? I can run source freshness to be sure that my data sources are fresh, and I don't want to run it on schedule. I want to run it with the API. I'll come back here. I'll leave everything here to be the same, right? Through Airflow, we'll be able to make this job to run. So now, this is the thing. DBT build is going to build our project for us. Sorry, let me delete this guy. It looks like we won't have enough time, right? But we'll be good. So this is the job, right? This is my job ID, which I really need from here. I'm going to need this in Airflow. I'll put this here. I really hope this happens, but for some reason this is not happening. Oops. I wish if we ran this locally, we might not have had these issues, but the issues around this setup are not allowing us to do that, but that's fine. I'll just copy these guys here, go back to Airflow, and literally all you need to do in case you get to run this on your own, you just need to put your account ID when you have connection login, put your account ID there, put in whatever your password is there. In this case, your password is going to be your API key. I will just get that from DBT. Sorry. DBT. Okay, so I'll go get that from DBT. Don't worry, this account is not too important, so I'll just copy the API key and move it here and store it somewhere as one of the variables here, right? So I've set up the rest of them. Everything here should work like really in a split second if everything works. But then this environment is not ready because I can't see my files here, and I'm sure I'm not able to save this. But once this gets saved, literally, we're meant to run one command called astrodev init, right? Once we run astrodev init, it's going to start up our Airflow instance, and we would have our Airflow UI, and we can be able to navigate to that and run the Airflow job. Many people get a lot of issues while installing Airflow. That's like a very major blocker for many people who want to learn Airflow. They spend all their time trying to configure Airflow to run, and at the end of the day, they just get worked out on it, and it doesn't run. So, you said? Anyway, so if you want to run Airflow in the cloud, there's just one provider at the moment, majorly one provider. So Astronomer has an Astro offering, which they can use to set up your Airflow instance for you, and you don't have to do too much around that again. Docker. Okay, so Airflow sets up, Astro SDK uses Docker under the hood. So it will spin up a Docker container for you that would have all your, Airflow has majorly about 4 parts: a scheduler, a triggerer, a web server, and what's the last one, please? I think there are around 4 of them, right? So those are the major components, microservice components of Apache Airflow. Let me refresh this one more time. I hope this works. I don't know, some people that pray here, like, can't people pray that this network would just work and save our life? Okay, but while we're waiting for that, let's just look at DBT. So this is the beauty of DBT. DBT can also show you the dependencies between every model in your project, right? Once this finishes loading, we should be able to see something. I've not set up the documentation, so we may not be able to see that feature now. So fine. So this is what DBT shows us. When I go to my models are just collection of MySQL files, right? So this is the beauty of DBT. From the fake store API, that's a data source. It's highlighted in green. Data moves to a staging table called users. We have the fake store API.cards. It moves to another table called user portfolio. Then from there, we can see that we have another model called top performing products, which is dependent on the products and directly dependent on the products. Then DBT also gives us a concept of exposures for our applications. Did I hear 2 minutes? How many minutes did you say? Sorry, how many minutes did you say? Okay, so we have an exposure, which is literally an application for us. Because when you want to edit something within your SQL files, right? If you're working in production, you want to be sure that it's not going to affect maybe any dashboard or something. The moment you change a configuration on this table, you automatically know that anything that is dependent on that table will be affected. And that's one reason why we literally have DBT to show us all that. In DBT, this is how you create your documentation. So you just create it in YAML files here, and DBT can store from these YAML files, generate this lineage graph for us, for our project. And then, of course, to build your model, you simply run DBT build, right? So DBT build, and once you execute that command, DBT is meant to run it for you and run all your SQL files and turn them into tables. If you've configured them to be incremental tables, DBT is also automatically, so you can see we have top performing products. That table has been created in our on our database. We have fixed store products history. We have we have tests too. So DBT has a concept of tests. So you can see that in between these models in our staging models, we have something called another YAML file there. And you can see that we have a couple of tests. So we're testing the ID field of the user's table here. We should confirm that it's unique and it's not null. So any null values there, the test is going to fail. You get a notification from DBT, and then you just know there's something wrong. You can quickly go and fix. That's one beauty of DBT. So if I run DBT docs generate, we can quickly create our documentation. So DBT has created a documentation for us. When you go here and click on this book icon here, it's going to open up a documentation for us. So here you can see we have a fake store API, right? That's our data source. We have carts, we have products. So you can see carts is the source table. This is the table containing information placed by users at the store, blah, 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 everything under there. You can even see the code used to create the table. So we are selecting A, B, C from da, 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 da. And we have our users, we have our products. Then we can see that there's an exposure called an application, customer portfolio app, right? So if you need to edit anything, DBT just shows you what it depends on. You can see that here. This depends on the user portfolio model. So you just know out of the glance that if I need to do any edits on this, I need to notify the users of this app that there may be a downtime or something like that. DBT can also show you the use lineage graph here, right, in the documentation panel. And so I believe we'll likely stop there. The network did not agree. One of our sponsors, one part, right here, and we just want to recognize them. I mean, I tell you, the sponsorship. So, please, at your own convenience, this is the GitHub repository for this particular class. GitHub.com, Iwuoha, Airflow DBT Magic. So, once you can pick this up, go to code spaces, create a code space, follow everything in the README here. So, once you go to Astronomer has a lot of free courses. You could check there and, Astronomer Academy. Let me just check Astronomer Academy. So once you go to here, to this place, you can see there are a lot of Airflow courses that you could start with for your learning, right? So if you've done Airflow, you likely have come across Mark. Mark has a Udemy course and many other courses here, new to Airflow, Airflow 101. There are free vouchers for Airflow certification exams. If you have issues getting any of them, you can still hit me up. We can discuss around that. If I get any, I'll send your way. Astro Cloud IDE and many other things here that are really interesting to learn. And the official Airflow documentation website. And the beauty of Airflow is that it's open source. So however anything works within Airflow, you can go find out the code behind it. So for me, I think using Airflow really improved my knowledge of Python. To see how people use Python to create some kind of abstraction layers for different operations. So if, let's say, I want to see how does Airflow communicate with Google Cloud Storage, right? I can just simply type Airflow GCS source code GitHub. Right? It's open source. So you can see Apache Airflow, blah, 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 cloud operators, gcs.py. Straightforward. I'm there. So if I have any issue, when I read through how this particular code works, I would know how Airflow integrates with Google Cloud Storage buckets. Whatever, whether it's Snowflake, whether it's AWS, whatever it is, you can really find out the code and see, okay, if you're creating a bucket, they will create a bucket. If there's a conflict, you will see this error message, right, in your Airflow environment. You can get list objects, that's a class, right? Many things. You can see how they delete objects from your Google Cloud Storage bucket or your S3 bucket. The class is there, the code is there. You can see everything and even create your own customization around it. I think that's that. All right, so like I said, we're done. You need to go. You can go. Yeah, we're done. Any other question? One last one. Any last question? I feel no lady has asked any question here today. I don't know why. No lady has asked any question. Is there any lady here that's used airflow? Maybe that's like the fastest way to start. Any lady here that's used airflow? Okay, you've used airflow. What's the greatest problem you've had with airflow? Installation. Astro CLI is your best friend. So run to Astro CLI. Forget about the long installation that Docker will give you. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. It was nice meeting you today. Thank you. Take care.